The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation just marked its biggest delivery yet today. 2.5 million meals handed out across southern and central Gaza in 34,000 boxes with support from the U.S. and Israel. Now, the group says that each box is enough to feed a family of 5 for 3.5 days, but images going viral from at least one aid distribution site showed absolute chaos, with massive crowds clamoring for supplies, in some cases amid gunfire. Now, the Hamas-run health ministry says that at least 25 people were killed by Israeli fire near a separate aid location, but the IDF says that it's unaware of any IDF fire during daylight hours that corresponds with the footage that is being circulated online. The Israeli army did, however, acknowledge that warning shots were fired at Palestinians who approached forces and posed a threat in the Netzarim corridor overnight. That's a different area entirely. But the success of the GHF's aid delivery has been clearly posing a threat to Hamas, which has struggled to intercept the goods and therefore control the local Gazan market. Local Gazans are clearly sick of the politics and are just desperate for aid amid a dire humanitarian crisis in the Strip, no matter who it's coming from. And that's what we can see in these images. And joining us now from the studio is our correspondent Robert Swift and our foreign policy and national security expert Shiri Fein Grossman. We also have on Zoom Palestinian-American analyst Ahmed Fouad Khatib. All right, I'd like to start with you, Ahmed. What does the chaos at these distribution sites reveal about the humanitarian situation that we're seeing on the ground in Gaza? I mean, Hamas is continuously warning Gazans that the GHF distribution sites are unsafe, yet clearly that is not having an impact on who's showing up. What is going on here?
Well, clearly there is desperation after almost 2.5 months of the forestalling of aid entry into the Gaza Strip by the policy of the current government and the defense ministry. However, on the one hand, the people of Gaza are desperate. They will absolutely go anywhere to get some food, even if it's scraps, to feed themselves and their families. On the other hand, I would hardly characterize the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation model as a large-scale success. Yes, they've been able to hand out a lot of meals. My issue, however, is that that has entailed a lot of unnecessary deaths, a lot of unnecessary congregations of hundreds of thousands of people. There needs to be more sites. There needs to be clear understanding of what's causing the violence. I understand initially there was some chaos and confusion, but why that's persisting is beyond just the desperation of the population. It's something much more sinister. And if there's any hope to save the mechanism, we have to act rapidly to understand what's going on.
You know, Shiri, I want to turn to you. These videos that came out today of thousands of Gaza civilians teaming, fighting one another to get this aid, it's really a devastating sight to see. How can the Israeli government justify the conditions on the ground, and what is being done to try to combat this?
Well, I think the responsibility is very salt to bear on Hamas. It's doing everything it can to kind of thwart these efforts, and unfortunately the UN agencies are kind of teaming with them. They're saying they don't want this aid to go, they want it through their resources and institutions which serve Hamas's purpose, and they control the aid. And we've seen so many warehouses where people just took over and found lots of flour and food that Hamas kept for himself. So I think we're seeing this interim period that we need to adjust. Rome wasn't built in a day. This is going to take a long time to construct a good institute that and mechanism that is better than the one in UNRWA and what's going on. So this. This is a call for UN NGCs to actually join that effort instead of just persisting to continue this bureaucracy that doesn't serve the Palestinians as well.
You know, Ahmed, Israel's long claimed that Hamas has been stealing international aid and reselling it on the black market for exorbitant prices to maintain control of the Gaza Strip and also keep its pockets full. We've seen many Gazans verify this as well. How has the GHF distribution efforts actually impacted Hamas so far, from what you understand? Are they really unable to get their hands on this aid?
Well, it's certainly the case that Hamas has stolen directly and indirectly aid and used it to finance some of their operations. I think where there's been a misunderstanding is the extent to which Hamas has stolen aid. There's been an exaggeration to say that all aid has been stolen, when we know that that's simply not the case. Nevertheless, what I don't understand is that, I mean, yes, people now coming into the GHF sites, they're able to collect food, they're able to take it, and then theoretically, as individuals, you can still turn around and sell some of these items on the black market because of that massive demand. The GHF has actually given up on the use of biometric scans, of ID verifications. And as we saw in some of the imagery, including ones that I just shared on my socials, the opening of one of the site, there was just a human invasion of people all at once. And so you don't know who's coming into these sites and who's collecting aid. For all you know, you could have hundreds of Hamas operatives as part of the collection of the food. So this is the part where I am now questioning the whole premise behind this mechanism. It is, yes, preventing Hamas from taking over entire truckloads of aid in the classical sense, and yes, preventing them from hoarding some of the, and I share some of the frustration with the humanitarian organizations that I think have just, some of them were lethargic, some of them were slow, but some of them also didn't want to touch this humanitarian foundation because they predicted some of the chaos, because they predicted this. So this is where I'm frustrated, because now, is this mechanism actually, is it really preventing Hamas from getting aid? And it's also leading to the chaotic scenes, leading to some deaths, and leading to desperation. And that breaks my heart, and that's unsustainable.
Rob, I want to turn to you. You know, there are constantly conflicting reports that are coming out about shootings at these aid sites and who is responsible. What is actually going on here?
Yeah, look, there's some instances where it does appear that the IDF has indeed opened fire, that it has been responsible for some of these cases. There's some of the footage coming out where we've seen clearly that multiple weapon systems are firing simultaneously. It's hard for me to believe that the IDF would be allowing Hamas to operate that many gunmen that close to these GHF sites. So that beggars belief that that could take place. At the same time, there are reports coming out that Gazan gunmen have been involved. Just 2 days ago, it was reported in Tel Al Sultan in the south, so this is close to the number 2 of the 4 distribution hubs, that 6 people were killed in a shooting incident there. And the eyewitnesses on the ground who'd been in the crowds, they said that IDF soldiers had fired on them, but they also said that Gazan gunmen had opened fire on them. This is the same area, Rafah, where there's been increasing reports that Israel is working alongside a militia that is opposed to Hamas in that area. So you've got different layers of control within the IDF's mechanisms here. There's the IDF themselves, there's this militia in that specific instance there. It's extremely difficult to verify, and of course it's Hamas. It's extremely difficult to verify. One thing that makes it harder to verify is that we're not able to get access to the Gaza Strip to report this. I myself and hundreds of other journalists have asked the IDF for access to Gaza so that we can report on exactly these sorts of things. At the minute, we've not been given access. If we were, we could report this, and it could be more clearly identified if it was indeed Hamas that were behind this.
Yeah, Shiri, I saw there was something that you wanted to say.
No, I mean, this is a very difficult situation. I don't think it's about the aid. It's about who controls Gaza in the day after. I think that's what the Israeli government is trying to do. That's the big play here. That's the strategy of trying slowly to replace Hamas with some sort of, other entity while they're, not accepting a Palestinian state. That's what they're trying to do. I can argue, on their cause and on their objective, but it's clearly what they're trying to do. It's not just about aid. It's how do I build a competitor to Hamas or someone to replace it, so one day they can sit and negotiate, and there would be another ruling government for Gaza.
I mean, I think that's correct, but there's also, this is part of the reason that many of the aid agencies in the UN said they didn't want to have anything to do with GHF, because instead of purely the objective being to feed the population, there's questions of what are other objectives. One is clearly an attempt to prevent Hamas from getting access to the aid, which Israel and most of its allies would say is totally legitimate. But there's the other one, which is the suspicion that part of the objective of GHF is to lure the population of Gaza away from the north of the Gaza Strip. We've got 4 locations where food is being distributed. 3 of them are in Rafah. at the very south. One of them is next to the Southern Corridor. There's still none in the north of the Gaza Strip, where there's still plenty of Gazan civilians. So it's for this reason that many of the aid agencies have been so cautious about operating alongside it.
It's a very tough operation, I think, to do in a very short amount of time. And I think they started it, let's do a pilot, let's see how it plays out, and try to kind of duplicate these efforts. It's problematic for sure.
I just want to turn to Ahmed really quickly here. I mean, you've heard what both Rob and Shiri had to say about this. What do you think the answer is here? I mean, is this current model of distribution sustainable? We also know that the food that's being handed out, primarily in these boxes, is dry food products, which then need to be cooked. It's not just food that you can eat on the spot, which also begs a question of whether or not people who are receiving it have access to the facilities to actually cook this food in war-torn Gaza. So in your opinion, what needs to be happening here right now?
It's absolutely not sustainable. I have family members. My brother is in Gaza right now. He runs a major medical NGO on the ground. I hear from friends and some of my surviving family members. I lost family members. I am in contact with people across the north and the south. What is going on right now is a travesty. Of course, Hamas is a terrible, evil, sinister organization. That's well established. But I don't believe that Hamas is exercising control on the entirety of the Gaza Strip. I understand the goal to separate Hamas from the aid distribution. How that is being done, however, is not only insufficient for the needs of the population, it is actually not achieving that because, like I shared earlier, at the end of the day, you have boxes that people can easily turn around and sell on the black market that Hamas can put its hands on. So what you have right now is a compounding of the suffering. It is very much so concentrating the population in southern Gaza. And I've talked to people who are involved in the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. I was willing to completely try something else and something different. But what is going on right now is insufficient. You have a population after 2.5 months that is desperate. So right now you need to supplement it. You need a hybrid approach that can maybe use some of the old mechanisms with the World Health the World Food Program and UNICEF, with some increased safeguards and some monitoring. I appreciate what my colleague there said about you need journalism, you need surveillance, you need better understanding of what is going on, so that we're not saying, oh, the IDF did it, oh, Hamas did it, oh, gunmen did it. We need potential airdrops. We need to reactivate the naval corridor. We need a potential small, limited mandate police-keeping force that is made up of the international community, of the Arabs, maybe of the PA, that can secure aid delivery and distribution to make sure Hamas doesn't get its hands on it, but that can maybe work with the IDF to better deliver it. There are different approaches. Unfortunately, the insistence on tying aid with a political objective of the war is part of where we're at right now. And that is both inhumane, it's going to compound the suffering in Gaza, and it's going to keep generating scenes that increase pressure on Israel by the U.S. administration. I've talked to U.S. officials here, current and former ones, who said that the U.S. tolerance for what is happening with the GHF is increasingly shrinking, whereby in the near future, the U.S. may force Israel to pull the plug on this and to negotiate for a rapid ceasefire.
Shiri, I saw that you were nodding your head there. What did you want to say?
No, I'm saying UNRWA is also has a political agenda. So I think it's okay to support one UN bodies that promote political agendas and support, and that de facto create, let's say, a welcoming environment for Hamas. But it's not okay to tie political aid to try to end Hamas government in Gaza. I think it's a complicated situation. Of course, my heart goes out to all the people of Gaza who are not part of this war. I think they are stuck between, the government of Israel, who's trying, to create a different reality for its people, and Hamas. This is not. It's a war. It's a very harsh position, but it would be very helpful if the UN bodies and organization will step up to help, instead of trying from a political standpoint to just put to hurdles to this whole effort.
But who said anything about UNRWA? I said World Food Program and UNICEF. These are not the same bodies. These are the bodies that Israel brought in to work to supplant UNRWA, to replace UNRWA. So we already have experiments with alternative bodies that didn't result in the deaths of over 100 Palestinians in less than a week.
I think we should promote any suggestion that may help. That said, I'm not in the field. I don't know the operational obstacles you have to some of the ideas, and I can tell you that the IDF, if something is feasible and possible, it would like to do that. I don't think he likes those images that are coming out. Regardless of the government, the IDF itself doesn't want to see this chaos. It's not good for security. It's not good for stability. It's not good for defeating Hamas. But I'm sure there are also very harsh conditions on the ground to get better results.